Good morning, sir. So, to begin with, data on urodynamic parameters are scarce and often contradictory, and lack of preoperative urodynamic studies makes it difficult to assess the exact role of the operation in causing these dysfunctions. To begin with, I will throw some lights on two studies which actually evaluated the preoperative bladder dysfunctions before the radical prostatectomy. So Porena et al. Described that detrusor overactivity was a de novo occurring dysfunction in 2 to 77% of patients. Decreased bladder compliance was present at baseline in 8 to 39% of patients and occurred de novo in about 50%. Impaired detrusor contractility was found in 29 to 61% of patients, and this problem occurred de novo in 47%. De novo is actually after the evaluation, after the radical prostatectomy, that is the de novo, that is the newly occurring. And
What is the percentage of de novo? 47.
De novo is a decreased bladder compliance is 50, impaired detrusor contractility is 47%.
What is baseline?
Baseline is 29 to 61%.
No, the baseline is before surgery.
Baseline is before surgery. Actually, ma'am, in these parameters are 8 to 39%. What they have given is some of the patients have improved, and some of the patients have again got this problem, decreased bladder compliance after the surgery. So this is one study which throws some light on the pre-surgical urodynamic findings, in which you can see the normal urodynamics was 38, the mild detrusor underactivity was 47, severe detrusor underactivity was 13, the normal detrusor contractility was 40, detrusor overactivity was 12, small cystometric capacity was 10, low compliance was 16. So it shows that it is a big problem. Before we go for radical prostatectomy, every patient should be evaluated regarding his lower urinary tract symptoms. So I will now begin my talk with throwing some light on the changes which happen before and after the robotic radical, or before and after the radical prostatectomy, the urodynamic evaluation. So the above mentioned study concluded in the last that the anatomical changes in the urinary bladder after robotic radical prostatectomy do not deteriorate the detrusor's condition. In general, symptom changes were significantly associated with the change in the bladder compliance rather than the change in the outlet obstruction index or maximum urethral closure pressure. Significant. The bladder compliance. I will throw some light on the pathophysiology later on. So the significant rise of Qmax, it is understandable that significant rise of Qmax due to significant decrease of bladder outflow resistance is most likely attributable to the removal of the prostate. Preoperatively, detrusor overactivity was less often present in men who regained continence after robotic radical prostatectomy. This implies that these men probably had lesser bladder outlet obstruction and bladder damage before surgery, and therefore a better regenerative capacity after surgery. So different studies on comparing pre and post UDS changes. One study had performed urodynamic studies before and after surgery in 44 men. Before surgery, the detrusor overactivity was present in 44% of the patients. In 14 of these 16 patients, detrusor overactivity disappeared after surgery. The mean flow rate increased significantly from 18 to 29 ml per second, and pDet Qmax decreased significantly from 88 to 58 centimeter of water. Another study found reduced bladder compliance in 32.3% of men, which continued to 28.1% in 3 years after RP. De novo hypocontractility was present in 51% of men and persisted in 25% 3 years after RP. The intrinsic sphincter deficiency was observed in 74% and in 59.3% of men 8 months and 3 years after RP respectively. Detrusor hypocontractility, decreased bladder compliance, and intrinsic sphincter deficiency became established conditions over time in 30% of patients. Nevertheless, these men did not develop voiding symptoms in this study. Another study analyzed the bladder function and voiding pattern before RP and 3, 6, and 36 months after RP in 72 men. They found a reduction in bladder capacity, detrusor and sphincter activity up to 3 years after surgery, same as the previous study. The incidence of detrusor overactivity increased from 37.5 to 51.4%. The maximum flow rate continued to improve up to 3 years. Another word, although voiding symptoms improved in most men, the significant deterioration in storage symptoms became a source of overall urinary bother in the long term. Mutsuwaka et al. Found de novo detrusor overactivity after surgery in 21% of 110 patients who underwent prostatectomy. Detrusor overactivity disappeared in 54% of 28 patients with preoperative detrusor overactivity. And the similar results were found by Slova and Lepar, who reported that storage symptoms were significantly improved after open RP, and this improvement was maintained in 4 years after the operation. So the thing is that every study that we have a mixed result over the detrusor overactivity according to all these studies. So the comparison with the index study, in these prospective urodynamic studies, baseline detrusor overactivity and impairment of bladder compliance ranges from 25 to 62% and from 2 to 37% respectively. De novo detrusor overactivity and de novo impairment of bladder compliance ranges from 2 to 16% and from 10 to 20% of men respectively. After RP, the maximum flow rate improves in 3 of the 3 studies. Pediatric Qmax decreases 4 of 4 studies, and the bladder capacity decreases 2 out of 3 studies. So this was all about the detrusor overactivity. Coming to the detrusor underactivity, studies reporting the incidence of detrusor underactivity pre and post RP have limitation. As such, there is no consensus on which urodynamics method should be used to diagnose detrusor underactivity. Described methods include the bladder contractility index, the presence of abdominal straining during voiding, and arbitrary urodynamic cutoff such as pediatric Qmax. So this is a study which has seen 108 patients out of 540 patients. Detrusor underactivity was seen in 108 patients, that is 41% of this patient. In this study, the only factor predictive of detrusor underactivity on univariate logistic regression was the type of surgery, that is open versus minimal invasive. Nerve sparing had no impact on detrusor underactivity. However, these nerves are likely responsible for erectile function as opposed to detrusor contraction. The most probable step during radical prostatectomy, where pelvic nerves supplying the bladder are injured, is during seminal vesicle dissection. During MIS cases, the seminal vesicles are approached through a posterior approach, whereas during an open case, they are approached through an anterior approach. During open RP, dissection can be performed in close proximity to the seminal vesicles due to the traction on the prostate, sparing nerves at the base of the bladder. This difference in dissection could explain the difference in detrusor underactivity between approaches. If this is the case, then the rate of DU will likely rise as the percentage of minimally invasive surgeries for radical prostatectomy increases. Another study which throws light on detrusor underactivity, that after radical prostatectomy, the voiding dynamics are different from those in the preoperative condition, because post-operatively, the flow controlling zone shifts from the proximal urethra to the external sphincter with a decrease of urethral resistance. Based on these interpretations of the urodynamic data, the detrusor contraction in 10 out of 110 patients was impaired. In these patients, although excellent bladder contraction was observed in the preoperative pressure flow study, apparent detrusor underactivity and high abdominal pressures were observed in the post-operative period. So these 10 patients had basically good bladder contractions in pre-op, but post-op they have apparent detrusor underactivity. The denervation caused by the neural injury to the trigone of the bladder during the dissection of the bladder neck was considered as one of the causes of post-operative detrusor underactivity. All of the 10 patients with the post-operative detrusor underactivity voided without residual urine, and their maximum flow rates were excellent. However, since the post-operative detrusor underactivity is considered to be irreversible, the upper urinary tract function must be carefully monitored over long periods of time. It was the conclusion of that study. Now, actually, the urodynamics is not being considered everywhere before before evaluating the patients for radical prostatectomy. There are studies which throw some light on AUA scores, that is effect on blood based on AUA scores. Many studies measure the bladder dysfunction using questionnaires such as the AUA symptom scores. So Coy et al. Revised data from 183 patients with available AUA SS scores before and after robotic RP. So based on his scoring, preoperative urinary symptoms were classified as mild in 94, moderate in 70, and severe in 19. Patients with severe preoperative LUT showed a non-significant decrease in urinary function subscales after surgery and had significantly higher post-operative urinary bother scores than did patients with fewer preoperative symptoms. However, several studies also throws light that LUTS or DO after that there is an improvement in LUTS or detrusor overactivity after radical prostatectomy. Masters and Rice found moderate to severe IPSS symptom score values in 56% of 125 patients before surgery, but in only 14% at 2 years after an open RP. In a study of 117 patients, Basturba et al. Found the reduction in IPSS values in patients with moderate to severe LUTS at 1 year after perineal RP. Butcher et al. Found that 66 patients treated with RP for localized prostate cancer, the frequency of OAB increased slightly after RP, but decreases within the first post-operative year and was below the initial level at 3 years. So these studies shows that bothersome symptoms exist before treatment of prostate cancer, and that RP can provide major benefits for for patients with these pre-existing bothersome LUTs. Showing some lights on pathophysiology. So the partial decentralization of the bladder as a result of its mobilization during prostatectomy combined with somatic denervation causes all these problems. Post-operative decentralization of the bladder, inflammation or infection, and geometric bladder wall alteration associated with pre-existing hyperemia with or without neuroplasticity. Periprostatic wide anatomic dissection, surgery-related damage to the afferent and efferent innervation to the bladder and urethra can result in impairment of the continence mechanism and partial denervation of the detrusor muscle. Detrusor overactivity may also result from a vesicourethral reflex, such that involuntary detrusor contractions may be induced by the presence of urine in the proximal urethra, which in turn activate neuronal circuits from the sphincter to the bladder. Impaired detrusor contractility is related to the denervation during the surgery. In particular, seminal vesical dissection has been shown to injure the midpoint of the pelvic plexus that usually provides autonomic innervation to all pelvic organs. Reduction in bladder compliance after RP may be related to the partial surgical decentralization of the bladder. Decreased bladder perfusion due to long-standing elevation of voiding detrusor pressure as a result of bladder outlet obstruction can initiate a reduction in bladder compliance. Pathophysiology of radiotherapy. Radiotherapy carries a risk of ischemia and induces an inflammatory response mediated by oxygen reactive species. OAB after radiotherapy could be due to bladder outlet obstruction in form of bladder neck stenosis or urethral stricture disease, bladder stones or mucosal inflammation. Radiation therapy, whether external or brachytherapy, can be a cause of voiding dysfunction and incontinence. The initial response is primarily edema and then gradually degeneration, fibrosis, and disorganization of the bladder musculature. While radiation is primarily delivered to the prostate, it also affects the bladder neck. Perivascular fibrosis of blood vessels might then cause vascular occlusion followed by ischemia of the bladder wall, which can then progress to fibrosis within 6 to 12 months. In addition, the innervation of the trigone is affected, which primarily affects the bladder sensation. Throwing some lights on management. So the detrusor overactivity, the treatment approaches are similar to the non-prostate cancer treatment. They are as follows. After behavioral therapy in form of bladder training, biofeedback, pelvic floor, muscle therapy, and restricting fluid intake, pharmacological therapy, anticholinergics and beta-3 agonists, surgical therapies in form of Botox, sacral neuromodulation, and urinary diversion. One study described the combined radical prostatectomy and bladder augmentation for concomitant prostate cancer and detrusor instability. In this study, they have taken 4 patients and they have followed them for 28 months, and all of the patients are doing well. Out of the 4 patients, only 1 patient they made a sigmoid colon continent diversion. Rest they had augmentation. So the treatment of patients with long-standing severe voiding dysfunction when combined with an incidentally discovered prostate cancer is difficult. Definitive radiotherapy for localized prostate cancer may be associated with worsening of irritative voiding symptoms. Risk of urinary incontinence after RP may be greater if the voiding symptoms are not addressed. So they have addressed 2 surgical techniques doing this combined radical prostatectomy with bladder augmentation. What they told is anastomosis of the ileal path to the bivalve bladder should be performed before the vesicourethral anastomosis to prevent unnecessary tension at the vesicourethral junction. Furthermore, the augmentation entocystoplasty will be facilitated when the bladder is not tethered down deep in the pelvis by the vesicourethral anastomosis. Coming to the detrusor underactivity, in patients who have pre-RP detrusor underactivity or in those with an acontractile bladder who are not able to empty the bladder even with the abdominal straining, it is anticipated that they may have to continue or start doing CIC even after SUI surgery. It is not advisable to perform CIC through a urethral AUS cuff due to the high risk of erosion. A bladder neck AUS cuff is also not recommended as it is considered technically difficult and risky in a post-RP patient where the anastomotic area may be scarred. In this setting, an adjustable transobturator male sling may be considered, although there has been no published data about this. Unlike the AUS, which circumferentially compresses the urethra, the ATOMS only compresses the bulbar urethra dorsally, leaving the ventral and lateral blood supply intact. The bulbospongiosus muscle is also left intact and acts as an additional protective layer between the device and the urethra. Sacral neuromodulation is an option for patients with detrusor underactivity. A meta-analysis by Gross et al. Found that patients with detrusor underactivity had statistically significant increase in voided volume and decreased mean PVR after SNM treatment. However, there are currently no published data on SNM in these patients with post-RP detrusor underactivity. If the detrusor underactivity can be successfully treated with SNM first, it may obviate the need for CIC and simply the subsequent treatment for the SUI. So to sum up, this is a meta-analysis which shows light on impact of radical prostatectomy on bladder function. So all the 6 studies which have been compared with comparative data pre and post operatively demonstrated a decrease in the rate of patients with equivocal clear obstruction. 6 of the 8 studies with 6 months or more follow-up showed an improvement in the rates of detrusor overactivity ranging from 3 to 12.5%. The rate of de novo detrusor overactivity ranged from 0 to 54.5%. 4 studies reported an increased rate of impaired bladder contractility, and 2 of the 3 studies showed a worsening rate of impaired bladder compliance following radical prostatectomy. So to conclude, urodynamic study shows that bladder outlet obstruction is improved following RP in most patients. RP resolves detrusor overactivity in some patients and causes de novo detrusor overactivity in others. The net effect is reduced overall rate of detrusor overactivity in most studies. Bladder compliance and contractility may be impaired after RP. This study throws light on impact of radiotherapy. According to this, impaired bladder compliance was reported in 18.8 to 62.5% of patients following radiotherapy. Bladder capacity was found to be statistically significantly lower following radiotherapy. Bladder outlet obstruction persists post-radiotherapy in most patients at 3 and 18 months post-radiotherapy. And de novo detrusor overactivity of 13.3% has been reported at 18 months post-RT. So the conclusion is radiotherapy for localized prostate cancer results in decreased bladder compliance and capacity demonstrated on urodynamic studies. Resolution of bladder outlet obstruction appears less likely in comparison to series on radical prostatectomy. De novo detrusor overactivity may develop following RT, especially with longer follow-up. So take-home message is overactive bladder symptoms potentially have a significant impact on quality of life and can be difficult to treat effectively.
With radical prostatectomy, very bold fellow. Very bold. And he's out of 4 cases, whatever they have done, they've told us what to do, how to do, when to do the anastomose. That means they would have evaluated these patients so well and found that it's possible.
Yes, sir.
So, you can have somebody, say, with neurovesical dysfunction, getting carcinoma of prostate, and you do radical prostatectomy for him. You do an augmentation for him at the same time. Possible. Very well.
Now, here in this particular patient, our index patient, the chances of he having retention with overflow is higher. Okay, as a surgeon who is doing a radical prostatectomy, you would like to have continence, and so you may do a tight bladder neck reconstruction and uretrovesical anastomosis. But this patient main problem is bladder neck retention underactive bladder, and that will be persisting. So you may have to consult him regarding CA, and then how effective it will be with this thing with angulation, what is the problem which he is going to face. Since you know that experience may not be available, it becomes difficult. This patient is also a chronic smoker, 40 years of smoking. In that background, how are you going to consult further? Whether you can do cystectomy at the same time with this foot, whether you are going to do in your informed consent process, you are going to do that in the discussion process, is something which you need to consider. Following everything, if you have got other non-surgical treatment without radiation, that could be an ideal option.
See, somebody, as a surgeon, you may decide in that patient that KM presented last week that I'm going to do radical cystectomy and prostatectomy and chondrite. Why? It will take care of his bladder problem once and for all. It will take care of his cancer once and for all. Halas, finished. You can't fight with the guy who makes that decision. It's the patient ultimately who likes whether he's going to take that call. If that surgeon who has proposed this stands up in court and somebody says, no, you're wrong, he cannot say he's wrong. He's got a lousy bladder, these are the problems he's going to avoid, he can't do. Take his bladder out, take his prostate out, and put him on a conduit and be done with it. Don't you do it for other conditions? The case I just showed you about, I was just discussing before, where the surgeon advised him a radical cystoprostatectomy in anal conduit because he's incontinent, he's got local disease there. Take everything out. His PSA is only 8. And he's got additional treatment. He's on enzalutamide, he's had everything. So, he may have control of disease and he may be in the category where he will have fight. But the old man doesn't want operation. He says, I don't want any more operation. So there's nothing wrong with that treatment, with that idea. So, it's crazy. I don't know.
So I think, sir, there is also another aspect to it is whether the patient in our scenario really understands. Incontinence they would, but like these outcomes as to what we discussed right now. So we did a radical prostatectomy on him and we kept an SPC.
Yes.
And now it's time to see. Maybe we can tell you after 2 weeks what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, what to do? I mean, that's it.
Yeah, maybe it's a good index case to discuss this somewhere in one of the...
No, one thing it can do. One thing it can make you a little bit bolder to make certain decisions. Okay, I've done one. Let me try the next one. And then you may find, oh, it's not bad. Let me try the third one. And then slowly you develop your series. Slowly you develop your series and you gain more confidence in this approach to it and say, okay, some of these guys.
Yeah, the other option was radical radiotherapy, but that's not a good option. So
That for this man is not a good option because he's got complete retention and patients who have problems emptying their bladders are not good candidates for radiotherapy.
Yeah, but he did. I mean, it's like when we explored, we had to convert him from lab to open because we were having some problems.
Yes.
But his bladder neck was pretty okay. There was no, the median lobe which we thought on imaging was not there. And it was quite a big prostate as it was described 57, it was 57, at least 57 to 60 grams, what it was described. So let's see, sir, we'll let you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe we can start doing their urodynamics pre-operatively so that can also...
That could be that if you have a number of patients, that could be a good way to look at all the patients who had radiotherapy and all the patients who had radical prostatectomy. Do urodynamics on them and see how their bladder is. Or just start off simply by asking for an AUA symptom score. Just work from there onwards and then say, okay. There are patients, there are who I see and follow. Some of them got frequency, but many of them are not bothered by it. Okay, my cancer is cured.
Yeah.
In my mind, that is what it is. My cancer is cured, and the frequency is all okay.